Hello, I'm taking on a challenge to beat every playable Nintendo-published game. The next game is The Guardian Legend. Now, this was one I had never heard about before starting the challenge, and based on the cover, I didn't really know what to expect. So, what even is this game? Is it even really a Nintendo game? Well, let's take a look at the Japanese release first. The game was developed by a company called Compile, and it was published by IREM in Japan. Now, we've seen IREM already in the challenge before, but this is the first time we've seen Compile. While Compile's single most known creation is probably Puyo Puyo, they were also known for developing a lot of shoot-'em-ups during the 80s and 90s. Now, I'm not too active in the shoot-'em-up community, but from what I can gather, Compile seems to be held in pretty high regard. In Japan, the game was called Gartic Gaiden, and it was a sequel/spin-off of an earlier Compile game called Gartic. Gartic was a shoot-'em-up that took place on a bunch of single-screen segments connected together with a maze-like map. When IREM tasked Compile to make a shoot-'em-up, Compile proposed that it should be a sequel to Gartic, and IREM accepted the proposal. In Gartic Gaiden, or The Guardian Legend, you play as a transformer robot who can switch between a human form and a fighter aircraft form. The cover art for the game was done by Naoyuki Kato, who was known for his detailed sci-fi paintings. I think the character on the cover is supposed to be the main character, although she doesn't exactly look like her in-game appearance. So, if IREM published the game in Japan, did Nintendo of America publish it in the US? Nope, in the US, it was actually published by Broderbund. Man, I've gotta say, the box art for this game in the US is kind of terrible. I'm not even sure what the US box art is trying to convey. Apparently, it's just a total ripoff of a poster from a 1985 horror sci-fi film called Creature. This game is nothing like that movie, and apparently even the film poster was a bit misleading to begin with, so I don't know what they were thinking with this one. Okay, if Nintendo didn't publish this in the US either, why am I playing it in the challenge? Well, this is the first game in the challenge to have been included strictly because it was published by Nintendo of Europe. The art for the cover was changed once again, and while I don't find it quite as visually stunning as the Japanese box art, at least it more accurately represents the game than the US one. Speaking of, here we can see that Nintendo's logo is the only one on the cover, with Nintendo's standard asterisk next to the name, directing you to IREM and Compile's names on the back, showing that Nintendo did indeed publish this one. So, with the official introduction of Nintendo of Europe to the challenge, I debated whether or not I wanted to finally talk about the launch of the NES across Europe and the eventual founding of Nintendo of Europe in this video. However, there's a bit of a problem with the timeline here. As a reminder, when it comes to games in this challenge, I generally try to play the US versions of games, and I play them in the order of each game's initial release date, which is typically the Japanese release date. I do this because I feel like it gives me the best historical perspective on how games evolved over time, while still allowing me to play them in the most convenient way possible on an NTSC console. I bring this up because I am covering The Guardian Legend with games from 1988 due to its Japanese release date, and it wasn't published by Nintendo of Europe until 1990. Not only that, but Nintendo of Europe wasn't even founded until 1990, a few years after the NES had already launched in various European countries. It just seemed a bit weird to me to talk about the founding of Nintendo of Europe 2 years before it actually happened, so I've decided to wait until a future game that fits in the timeline a bit better to go over Nintendo's early history in Europe. So, setting that aside, let's jump into my time with The Guardian Legend. After starting the game, the story is explained with some opening text. Long ago, an alien race sent a planet hurtling towards Earth, and this planet was loaded with mysterious life forms. My mission was to destroy the vicious aliens on the planet. I was the Guardian of Earth, and my saga would become known as the Guardian Legend. The manual expands on this a little more, and it even shows us a picture of the planet, which is called Naju. The planet apparently had a bunch of creatures as cargo, and over time, these creatures became increasingly evil as they multiplied. Apparently, the planet also has a self-destruction mechanism within it, because this is a sci-fi, so of course it does. Anyway, after the opening text, I was immediately thrown into the gameplay. That's right, this one is a shoot-'em-up. Big surprise. I think at this point I'm approaching Naju in battle airship mode, although at the time I didn't even know the main character was a transformer yet. Man, the background here is moving super fast. Kind of impressive for the NES. I got messed up at first, and it also didn't help that I thought this thing was a power-up, but it just hurt me instead. Eventually, things slowed down, but I blew up after getting bombarded with a bunch of projectiles. Great, I lost my first life already. This sent me back to the title screen. Wait, that's it? No extra lives? Let's hope this game doesn't expect you to do it all in one go. On my second run, I finally picked up an actual power-up. This refilled my life a bit, and it also gave me 10 chips, but I had no idea what chips even were. After a bit more, I ran into the first boss. This thing was just a bunch of cannons or something that sent an endless wave of projectiles at me. I slowly but surely defeated each of them and eventually cleared the first stage. After this, I was immediately taken to a new screen with a new perspective. I was kind of confused at first, but this character on the bottom is the main character, just now in human form. I wasn't sure where it came from, but I heard some kind of message that explained a bit more of what was going on with this planet. There were initially peaceful aliens on it, but they were overrun by evil creatures, and the alien who left this message was the last one alive of his race. The alien's message explained that there were 10 safety devices on Naju, and I had to destroy all of them to blow up the planet. After this, I could walk around and shoot a gun. In this first room, there were already 4 different portals I could step in. Well, if you couldn't tell yet, this game is a total mashup of genres. It's basically a mix between an action-adventure and a shoot-'em-up. There's a whole world to explore when you are in human form with various shoot-'em-up sections spread around throughout it. When I paused, I saw the world map. The first place was called Area 0, and largely, it looked like a big square. After exploring around for a bit, I found some kind of secondary weapon that looked like a lightsaber. This game is full of secondary weapons to discover, and using them costs chips, that item I found before in the shoot-'em-up section. It looks like I can hold a maximum of 50 chips for now. Eventually, I found a warp panel with a strange symbol on it, but stepping on it did nothing. Maybe this is some kind of locked door? I walked around some more, and in one room a bunch of walls formed around me, and I encountered another boss. Thankfully, he was slow as a snail, so he wasn't too hard to take out. He dropped another type of secondary weapon, although I didn't realize it at first. After wandering some more, I found another message. This one said something about corridors that I needed to access by destroying their seals, and it also said that many of the areas were locked off, which I'm guessing has something to do with that weird symbol I found earlier. I explored around some more and found a random happy face on the ground. This thing upgraded my maximum chips to 100, which also suddenly caused my standard weapon to become upgraded too. Nice. I guess this game has some permanent power upgrades to hunt for. Eventually, I found a room that said Corridor 1, and there was some kind of weird square gate in the center. This was one of those corridors the message mentioned, and after blasting the gate enough, it opened up. I hopped in and was taken to another shoot-'em-up section. Basically, there are tons of corridors hidden throughout the planet, and these are the shoot-'em-up portions of the game. This one was full of all kinds of fish enemies. Maybe that means I'm underwater? Something kind of cool in this game is that pretty much all of the secondary power-ups work in both forms, so I could use the lightsaber here too. Man, this part got pretty hectic at times. Fish covered the screen, and there were these weird red orbs that would form trenches and shoot squids out at me. Eventually, I reached the boss. This was a giant fish that the manual called Fleepa. He lunged at me constantly, and he also shot a bunch of those squids out too. I got overwhelmed by him and failed Corridor 1. This sent me back to Area 0, but thankfully I still had all of my upgrades. I guess going back to the title screen was just a thing for that intro stage. I finally realized here that I had another secondary power-up, which basically made some kind of energy ball circle around me like a shield. I also found another secondary weapon while wandering around, and this one just shot a big energy sphere forward. Soon after, I encountered a couple of shops that sold secondary weapons for power chips, but I couldn't even hold enough chips to afford them yet. Who the heck are these shopkeepers anyway? They look like they come from a Kirby game or something. So something I learned around this time was that the strength of my shot actually changed depending on how many chips I had. That's why it became stronger when I got the upgrade to 100 chips. After exploring Area 0 some more, I found another boss. This one was a bit more annoying since he kept hiding underground, but once again, he was pretty easy. He dropped another permanent upgrade. This one increased my maximum health. Nice. After this, I found another group of shops, and the items here were a lot cheaper. I bought another new secondary weapon that sent out some kind of sound wave in front of me. I also bought another secondary weapon that homes in on enemies. The final thing I found in Area 0 was a save point. Well, more like a password room. That's right, they didn't want to spend the extra money on the ability to save, so they just went with passwords in this game. After all this, I decided to challenge Corridor 1 again. All these new upgrades made a huge difference, especially those homing attacks. It still ended up being super close though. With my health bar practically empty, I finally conquered Fleepa. For beating him, I got a key. This one let me go through any portal that had a symbol that looked like a crescent moon. I also got another secondary weapon that shot energy balls in a circular motion. One of these moon doors was right next to me, which led to Area 1, but I had found one earlier and decided to go there first. This one led to Area 2. I wasn't really paying attention to the area numbers yet, so I just kept exploring Area 2 for now. After searching around here for a while, I found Corridor 12. What on earth? I just did Corridor 1. How many of these are there? Well, I didn't realize it at first, but each area had 2 corridors, and they were always separated by an increment of 10. So, for example, here, in Area 2, I could find Corridors 2 and 12. Corridor 1 was technically in Area 1 too, just at the very start of it. Each of the keys can be found in the corridors labeled 1 through 9. Now, to be honest, I'm not really sure if corridors 11 through 20 are just optional, or if they're the ones I had to defeat to destroy the planet. The reason why I'm not actually sure is that I decided to conquer every corridor in the game eventually anyway. Well, for now, I was a bit intimidated by the big number, so I decided to just explore around Area 2 some more instead. I found a few more bosses on foot here, including this crab guy who shot a bunch of bubbles at me. Thankfully, he had a pretty big blind spot that made it easy to take him out. He dropped a gun power-up that increased my max attack. I also found more chip and life upgrades in this area, which are always helpful. In one specific room, I got a clue on how to enter Corridor 2. It said to touch everywhere. For each corridor labeled 1 through 10, there's some kind of puzzle you have to solve to enter it. For Corridor 2, I just had to touch these 4 square objects around the gateway to open it. Well, Corridor 2 comes after Corridor 1, so I decided to take this one on next. Corridor 2 was another water-themed corridor full of fish enemies. The boss of this one was a crayfish called Crawdaddy. He shot out his hands at me, although these didn't do a whole lot of damage, so he was a lot less threatening than the last boss. He went down pretty easily, and I earned another key that looked like some kind of fish hook. I also got another lightsaber power-up. Well, once I grabbed the item, it actually upgraded my lightsaber power-up. That's right, these secondary weapons can also be upgraded. After this, I decided to test my luck against Corridor 12. This one moved a lot faster, but I was able to make it to the boss, a red version of Fleepa. I got messed up by him almost immediately. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to hold off on this one for now. Using my new maximum chip count, I bought another secondary weapon. This one shot attacks to the sides of me. Once I acquired this weapon, I decided to finally explore the rest of Area 1. Back here, I found more bosses than upgrades, including a new secondary weapon that shot a slow, powerful orb in front of me. Deep in Area 1, I also found Corridor 11. After getting clobbered by Corridor 12 though, I decided to hold off on this one. Instead, I used that fishhook key to move on to Area 3. This place was jungle themed, and man, some of the bad guys here started to do a lot of damage. I found Corridor 13 pretty quickly here, and right behind it was Corridor 3. I wasn't even sure how, but I accidentally solved the puzzle and opened it already. Before attempting it though, I decided to explore Area 3 a bit more to see if I could find some upgrades. However, I soon found this nasty boss enemy that looked like some kind of plant with a gnarly mouth. He hopped around like crazy, and it was super hard to even hit the guy safely. He was blocking the way forward, and after losing to him a few times, I decided to just challenge Corridor 3 instead. This corridor was a completely new style to match the jungle theme of the area I was in. Along with it came all kinds of new enemies. In particular, there were these awful flower enemies that would burst and shoot a ton of homing attacks at me. I got wrecked by these enemies on my first run and lost here too. Man, I got stuck here for a bit. Between the nasty plant boss and those exploding flowers, I was having a tough time with Area 3. Eventually, I did reach the boss of Corridor 3 though, and his name was Optomon. He shot these weird attacks that would hang out in front of him and then stick to the ground, and yeesh, they were hard to dodge. After a bunch of runs, I eventually realized that if you defeat the flowers before they burst, you don't have to deal with their attack. This made the corridor a bit easier to get through, but I still ended up really struggling with the boss here. His attacks took out half of my health in a single hit, and I died over and over to him. I kept going back and forth between these two bosses that I was struggling with, and eventually I found a strat for the plant guy from earlier. I just tanked him with a lightsaber and defeated him before he could take me out. This guy dropped a permanent shield upgrade, which would probably be helpful for the boss of the corridor. However, beating him also opened up a way forward, so I decided to search for more upgrades first. I found another chip upgrade back here, as well as another new secondary weapon. This one destroyed everything on screen, but instead of using chips, it just had a limited number of uses. I guess I should use this sparingly. I also found out that to make Corridor 3 appear, you just had to wait long enough in the room, which I had already discovered by mistake. Unfortunately, even with these new upgrades, the boss was still a pain. I even decided to travel back to Area 0 to buy whatever weapons I could from those shops. I ended up getting something called the Hyper Laser, which was a powerful weapon that could only be used in ship form. It took me a couple more tries, but with this weapon I finally did it. After a long fight and almost no health remaining, I beat Optomon and got my next key. Yeesh, that was so much harder than anything else in the game so far. With a newfound sense of confidence, I decided to just try Corridor 13 since it was right there. I used the shield power-up a lot here, and it ended up being one of my favorites. It's just really good at clearing out enemies when things get chaotic. The boss of this corridor was a new enemy named Bombarder. It teleported around and shot tons of homing missiles at me. The shield was super useful here too, as it made quick work of the homing attacks. With a ton of health still remaining, I switched to the lightsaber and took him out soon after. Maybe these high number corridors aren't so bad after all. Beating it gave me another armor upgrade. I wonder if I was supposed to beat this one before Corridor 3. Well, since Corridor 13 was easy, I decided to go back to Corridor 12. I used a new double lightsaber power-up I had found, and this weapon worked super well on this boss. I crushed him with ease. For beating him, I got an upgrade to the hyper laser. After this, I decided to finally challenge Corridor 11 too. The boss of this turned out to be an easier version of Optomon. I have a feeling I was supposed to do these first. The upgraded Hyper Beam made pretty quick work of him, and he dropped the final secondary weapon in the game, the grenade. This weapon lobbed a projectile forward, which made a big explosion once it landed. With all of these corridors complete, it was time to explore Area 4 with my new key. This was another jungle area, and here, the clue I received to open the gate was to ask for help from the round creature several times. Soon after, I found Corridor 14, which I decided to take on right away this time. There were all kinds of new enemies here, including these gnarly-looking plant guys. There's honestly an impressive amount of enemy variety in this game. The boss of this corridor was a big machine named Clawbot. At first, I didn't even realize he was shooting these massive lasers at me, and I stupidly lost a ton of health to him. I ended up destroying his claw, but that only made him shoot out even more lasers, and I got wrecked by him. During my next attempt, I brought him down to low health using the double lightsaber power-up, but I ran out of chips and he destroyed me again. Maybe I should wait a bit more for this one. I explored Area 4 some more, and after finding an upgrade to the double lasers, I ran into that awful plant boss again. Great. Somehow though, after losing all my chips, I managed to beat him and got another gun upgrade. I also found Corridor 4, but I couldn't figure out how to get inside, so I challenged Corridor 14 again. Even with all the upgrades, I still couldn't beat Clawbot. Bummer. After rereading the clue, I finally figured out how to enter Corridor 4. I had to enter a shop near the corridor over and over again until the shopkeeper opened it up for me. This was another jungle corridor, but it was pretty easy compared to some of the other ones I'd seen. The boss was this dinosaur-looking guy named Terramute. He had a lot of health, but his projectiles were super easy to deal with, so I barely lost any health against him. I took him out eventually and got the next key. I also got an upgrade to a secondary weapon here that was already level 3, and I found out that 3 was the maximum level that they go. I guess they just give you more than enough upgrades for some of these. I really wanted to beat Corridor 14 before leaving the area, so I challenged it once more. I had like no health remaining, but I finally managed to beat Clawbot and earn a health upgrade. On to Area 5. The theme changed again, and now I was in some kind of cave. After beating another boss, I found Corridor 15 pretty early on. Despite how much trouble I had with Corridor 14, I decided to see if I could pull this one off. This corridor had all kinds of crystals everywhere, including some that were enemies that flew out at me. The boss of this stage was another Clawbot. If he was anything like the green version of Optomon, he should at least be easier than the Clawbot I fought previously. It was still a bit tough, but I conquered him and earned a massive chip upgrade, taking me from 400 max chips to 800. After exploring Area 5 some more, I found another clue. I just had to fire into the gate again, similar to Corridor 1. I also found a boss that I kinda struggled with. It was just this slow-moving crystal that occasionally shot projectiles, but it had so much health. I kept getting cornered and dying to this thing before I was able to deal enough damage. Finally, for some reason, it was the Soundwave weapon that did him in. He dropped another armor upgrade, and I soon found Corridor 5. At this point, my shield's secondary weapon was fully upgraded, which made it super huge. It was really useful here as I flew through waves upon waves of enemies. The boss of Corridor 5 was another new one, Zib-Zub. He kind of looked like someone I should have fought in one of the water areas. He bounced around a lot, but the double lightsaber made pretty quick work of him. With that, Area 5 was complete. Area 6 immediately started with the gateway to Corridor 6, but I had no idea how to enter it. This was another cave area, and navigating it was a bit tricky since it was full of these dividers in the middle of the rooms. I found a bunch more upgrades here, and eventually I stumbled on Corridor 16. I used the shield power-up once again, although since it was so powerful now, it just ate through my chips like crazy. The boss of this corridor was another Optomon. Great. During this fight, I developed a new strat for him that would have been super useful before. Instead of focusing on dodging his attacks, I just followed his movements left to right. This automatically dodged a lot of his moves, and I took him out on my first try. I couldn't find the clue to Corridor 6, but after goofing around in the room for a while, it opened up while I was standing on it using my double lasers. Huh? How did I do that? Well, whatever I did, I could now challenge the next corridor. This one had volcanic mountains bombarding me with endless homing attacks. Once again, the shield kinda carried me through this one. The boss of Corridor 6 was another new one, but he's not in the manual for some reason. It kind of just looks like a small mechanical butterfly. Honestly, it was kind of a joke. I beat him with ease and got the key to Area 7. This next place looked pretty weird, and I can't really think of any other way to describe it besides alien. Man, the first corridor I found here, Corridor 17, was pure chaos. I even started to use some of those special attacks that killed everything on screen. At least I have almost 200 of these now. There were also these tiny, goofy-looking octopus dudes that had way too much HP. The boss of this stage was just a bunch of massive eyeballs that shot out a ton of little eyeballs at me. It took some time, but eventually I took them all out and cleared Corridor 17. I explored Area 7 some more, and I got a clue that told me to simply enter the corridor room over and over to open the gate to Corridor 7. Once I found it, I did what the clue said, and after going in and out a bunch, the door opened. Time for Corridor 7. This one was pretty similar to Corridor 17, although it didn't get quite as chaotic. The boss was the eye dude again, and I used the slow orb weapon to mow down their health. After this, I found a secret area in Area 0 that I had missed before with some more clues. It told me how to enter Corridor 6, which I had discovered earlier without the clue. Apparently, I was supposed to use a specific weapon on the door, and if you remember, I randomly used my double lasers on it when it opened. The message even said that Seal 6 was hidden very well, and I had somehow solved it by complete accident. Anyway, there was another hint back here, this time to Corridor 8. I had to deselect my weapon to open it up. Immediately when entering Area 8, I found Corridor 8 and did as the clue suggested, letting me enter the next corridor already. This was another one of those alien corridors, and those annoying octopus guys were back. The boss of this one was a nasty looking dude called Grim Grin. Man, these guys are getting more and more freaky looking as I go. He sent out so many projectiles at me, and I got overwhelmed. Darn, this was the first corridor I failed in a while. I decided to just explore Area 8 first and hunt for upgrades. There were more repeat bosses here, but I had so many upgrades at this point that I could pretty much tank them all. I also found Corridor 18 here, and it turned out to be a lot easier than Corridor 8. Grim Grin was also the boss here, although I think it was an easier version of him. Man, this guy just has so much health. After destroying all 5 of his eyes, the boss got even more hectic. Projectiles were flying everywhere, and my chips kept running low. It took forever, but I finally beat him. Time to beat him again in Corridor 8. After a long and grueling fight, I finally took out Grim Grin there too, and Area 8 was complete. Area 9 was up to the north, but this area was surrounded by cliffs. Honestly, this is a lot more normal of a theme than the last one. After a bit, I found Corridor 19. This place had skull enemies, more crystals, and other types of skull enemies. The boss of Corridor 19 was another bombarder. Well, thankfully the last one of these I fought was pretty easy, and this one was too. I nabbed another defense upgrade as a reward and continued exploring Area 9. This time, the clue for the 9th gate was to simply stand on top of it. Yes, it was that easy. Corridor 9 was tough. There were these enemies that sent tons of projectiles at me similar to the flowers from before, but I couldn't find any way to deal with them at first. After losing a life here, I decided to just use that move that kills everyone on screen to get past them. The boss of this corridor was pretty nasty too. His name was Igor, and he shot a ton of beams while launching skulls at me. Thankfully, he doesn't move from side to side, but I still almost lost to him. After a clutch full health drop from a skull, I finished him off and beat Area 9. Up next was Area 10, another cliff area. Well, is this going to be the last one? I pretty quickly found Corridor 20 and decided to enter it right away. Dang, these were getting pretty tough. My attacks just weren't one-shotting bad guys anymore, which made them a lot more difficult to deal with. Worst of all, that one move that previously killed everyone in one hit wasn't even strong enough to take everything out anymore. I died a few times during this corridor, and somehow it got worse. The boss was Clawbot, one of the bosses I struggled with a lot before. Thankfully, I found a secondary weapon that was super useful against him, the swirling projectile. At maximum level, this thing stuck around for a while, and it was really good at just dealing tons and tons of damage against bosses. During the second phase, the boss fired lasers pretty much non-stop, but my special weapon made quick work of him, and I finally beat Corridor 20. Phew. After this, I kept exploring Area 10, and I found another boss type, a floating skull that kind of looked like it belonged to a dinosaur. The hint for the final gate was to simply keep firing at it, which was basically the same solution for both Corridors 1 and 5. The only real catch here was that I had to do it for a lot longer this time. Okay, time for Corridor 10. Will this be the last one? This corridor had some sections that moved super fast, but honestly, it wasn't nearly as bad as Corridor 20. The boss was another fight against Igor. This time I just used the swirly projectile, and once again, it proved to be pretty useful. This one definitely seems like one of the best late game weapons. After some time, he went down, and Corridor 10 was conquered. So, was that it? Well, the game didn't end yet, so I guess not. I searched around Area 0 and found a new place that had opened up, Corridor 21. I guess the self-destruct sequence had been activated as I just needed to escape now. Corridor 21 was basically just a boss rush. First up was Fleepa, although he went down super fast. Next was Zibzub, and he died pretty quickly too. I guess they didn't give these guys a whole lot of health. I also fought Clawbot, Optomon, Grimgrin, and Bombardier again. Huh, that wasn't quite all of them, but okay, I'll take it. After this, I flew away from the planet and it exploded as I escaped. Phew, now is that the game? Nope, it's still not done. After a brief flying section, the game's true final boss appeared. I guess his sprite is so complex that they had to constantly flicker different parts of it on and off. Man, this fight was long and grueling. It was hard to find a good sub-weapon to hit him with. Thankfully, he sent out missiles and attacks that occasionally dropped items, which can be used to refill chips and health. Eventually, he turned yellow, which I hoped meant that he was close. I started to run low on health myself, and it got so bad that I just spammed the move that killed everything on screen until a full health item dropped. After some more time, he changed to red. Yeesh, it's still not over yet? It was chaotic, but finally, after some more swirly attacks, the final boss was defeated. After this, I got a screen with my final score and a close-up of the main character. The game congratulated me and called me the greatest player. Well, you heard it here, folks. I guess I'm just the greatest player out there. No one else could possibly be better than me. With that, the credits rolled and the Guardian Legend was complete. On to the review. This game was a very pleasant surprise. I had never heard of the game before, and the cover didn't really make it look all that appealing, but I think this might be my favorite third-party game in the challenge so far. The mashup of genres may be jarring for some, but I think the game handles it really well. Pretty much all of your upgrades work in both types of scenarios, so it's not like they feel completely disjointed or anything. I think part of the reason this mashup works so well for me is that I'm not particularly crazy about the usual pace of shoot-'em-ups, and I think it has something to do with them generally being auto-scrollers from beginning to end. So this mashup ends up working perfectly for me. You got bursts of fun shoot-'em-up sections broken up by sections with a lot of exploration and power-up hunting. If you're not like me and just want to play it for some good old compile shoot-'em-up action, the game apparently has a password that lets you play through the entire game with only the shoot-'em-up sections. That's not really for me, but it's neat that there's an option. I also really liked the variety of weapons in this game. There were just so many different options, and I found it fun to try out different weapons to figure out what worked best against each boss. Speaking of, there were quite a few bosses in this game too. Sure, there were a lot of repeats, but there still ended up being a pretty high number of unique enemies and bosses in this game. Now, despite all this praise, I do have a few issues with the game. While I did like exploring the map, a lot of the rooms were really similar. They were largely just a bunch of near-empty rooms that got filled with a bunch of random enemies. The combat is fine, so it works, but it really started to run thin as I got deeper and deeper into the game. Eventually, I also got so powered up that during a lot of the second half of the game, I kind of just played on autopilot. Even some of the late-game shoot-'em-up sections felt like this too. There was just so much chaos on the screen, but I was also so powerful that I was often just tanking my way through the game. However, despite these complaints, it still ended up being a pretty fun experience. The mashup works surprisingly well, there's a lot of weapon variety, and the visuals and music are quite good too. I gave the Guardian Legend an 8 out of 10. With the Guardian Legend complete, I have now finished 68 out of the 155 NES games in the challenge, meaning I am now 43.87% of the way through all of the NES games. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to see more of these in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss out on the next one. Also leave a like if you enjoyed it, since it will help the channel grow and motivate me to continue this series. I hope I will see you in the next step of my quest to beat every Nintendo game.